It's the 28th of March, 2025. Coming up on today's Global Intelligence Agency Operations Report. As the great game of Earth comes to an end, the deep state begins to realize they were just a pawn in another player's game. Elon Musk talks all about Iron Mountain in his interview. Although we mentioned it on Monday's news, we will give you a deeper understanding of these facilities. And let's take a deeper look at the old chessboard as the deep state erupts into a state of confusion. Well, it's the 28th of March. By the time I talk to you, I guess next we'll be on, oh no, not quite the 1st of April. And it's going to be a busy weekend here. It's been a busy week, and we have a lot to go over and a lot to cover. And it's going to be interesting because I've been telling people, at least, those that are calling, with the deep state and different agencies, that, they're missing the game and they're missing the system. And there hasn't been an open window, I should say, for us to tell you a little bit more about the game and why, well, the only way to win the game is not to play. And for yourselves, it's going to be a pretty exciting time coming up here soon where things are going to be a lot clearer. So I'm real happy about that. And we're making some serious progress on our side. And we have, well, a lot of good things to look forward to in 2025. So I'm very happy to report that part. So I guess we'll start with the regular news. Last we spoke on Monday, and apologize for not being here Wednesday. Last we spoke on Monday, we talked a little bit about Elon Musk, the Doge department. We made mention about an Iron Mountain facility. So that was something that was happening pretty much in real time as the report, and we were giving the report very close to anyway. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about Iron Mountain. And I understand what the government is saying, at least to the people, as to what Iron Mountain is. But we're going to tell you a little bit more about the truth behind Iron Mountain and why it's so important that they think they're going to get a hold of it. So let's pull up a quick interview. I think we're just going to take a little clip of it. It's about a 40-minute long interview. You can find it on YouTube. But let's, I think this interview was probably a day or so ago from Elon Musk. So let's play that real quick.
I love the challenge, so I jumped on board. And it turns out there is actually a mine in Pennsylvania that houses every paper document for the retirement process in the government. Now picture this. This giant cave has 22,000 filing cabinets stacked 10 high to house 400 million pieces of paper. It's a process that started in the 1950s and largely hasn't changed in the last 70 years. And so as you dug into it, we found retirement cases that had so much paper, they had to fit it on a shipping pallet. So the process takes many months, and we're going to make it just many days.
Will it be digitized, or how?
Absolutely. So this will be an online digital process that will take just a few days at most. And I really think, it's an injustice to civil servants who are subjected to these processes that are older than the age of half the people watching your show tonight. So we really believe that the government can have an Apple Store-like experience, beautifully designed, great user experience, modern systems.
Because right now it's by hand.
Yes, the retirement process is all by paper, literally with people carrying paper in manila envelopes into this gigantic mine.
So they can't retire more than a certain number every month?
Yes.
About 8,000 a month.
That's how the reason we discovered it was we were saying, like, well, let's encourage voluntary retirement. They said, well, the most they could do is 8,000 a month. And even under normal circumstances, it can take 6 to 9 months just to have your retirement paperwork processed, and they often get the calculations wrong. So we're like, well, why would it take so long to retire? And they're like, well, because of the mine. And you're like, what do you mean a mine? What's a mine got to do with retiring? And that's where we discovered that all the retirement stuff is still done by paper in a process that looks identical to what occurred in the 1950s. Like if you took a snapshot of the mine when it first started in the 50s to today, it looks the same.
It's amazing. So how long do you think it'll take to turn over?
We're working as fast as we can. Probably next couple of months we'll have this overhauled.
Yeah, not quite, guys. So one of two things is happening here. Either the deep state that's running the Trump administration is lying to the Doge department, which is not entirely, could be entirely true. Or, well, they're just not telling you. And I know you'd be shocked if I told you that they're lying on the news. I mean, that would be totally appalling, and I'm sure that's something you've never heard of before. But in this particular case, he says, quote unquote, this one facility in Pennsylvania holds 400 million pieces of paper. Now, that's a lot of paper. And they said they could have it digitized in, quote, just a few days. Are you kidding me right now? How many people could you fit in that room? And even if you did, how many papers can one scan in just a few days? Probably not 400 million at all. But let's talk about the real story behind Iron Mountain. Now, Iron Mountain is, and you can find this information on the internet, is a conglomerate, a worldwide conglomerate of data centers. These data centers have been in existence for quite a long time. I think that the government has been using these facilities, governments plural, so it's not just a U.S.-dominated corporation, although I think that it's owned by some people in the U.S. But Iron Mountain is in India, it's in Russia, it's in South Africa. I mean, it is everywhere on this planet, New Zealand, Australia. They have facilities everywhere. And it is one of the world's largest, I would say, data center conglomerate, because we're talking about worldwide data centers in the world, at least as far as human accessibility to data centers. Underneath all of those data centers, though, and this is what powered those data centers, was connections to, well, Omega and to other AI systems. The reason why all the data would go into these data centers is because the recording of the information was tied to one of the old archivist systems. So all of the information, retirement and otherwise, it's not just about retirements. It's all government data would go into these facilities. So these people are probably under the impression, based on what I can see, that they would actually have access to the deeper levels of Iron Mountain facilities within just a few days. And I think this report was about a day or two old. So they are guessing by this weekend that they would have access to all of this data that has been, quote unquote, digitized. And has it been? Well, yeah, we all know that all the information in the world goes into a data center of sorts, which has nothing to do with Iron Mountain per se. Iron Mountain itself has a decent amount of computing capacity as it relates to human computer networks. Could they run an entire financial system or run every government systems in the world? No. Does it look like it's an old mine of sorts, at least the one in Pennsylvania that they're referring to? Well, you could say that. There was a lot of drilling, for sure, and drilling even into other places and other connections to, let's just say, off-planet, which gave it its computing power. And that was the important part of why all the records were transferred into facilities such as these. There are many throughout the United States. You can go to Iron Mountain data centers and you can see where all the facilities are, at least the ones that they're talking about on the internet. And even that is a lot. So to say it's one facility and there's some guy that, puts all these papers into these big mile-high stacks, and, well, that's just kind of for show. But it's not surprising to me because, this Doge department seems to be kind of mushroom-like. I mean, they are sort of fed you know what and, put in the dark. And it either that or they're just trying to do a show for people. And I'm not sure which one it is, but either way, it looks like they're totally full of it. They're being told that they have magic computer systems that can just spit out unlimited payments, which is a lie. They've been telling the American people an awful lot of stuff that has been a lie. I do know to some degree they have been fighting pretty hard, even as late as last night, to get into some of the treasury systems they know nothing about. I don't think they really truly, I know Musk has some basic understanding of an AI system, since his intention is to transfer his consciousness into an AI system so he can live forever and become immortal. I mean, he's told people that. I think it's even leaked out onto the internet. So he's got to know that there is more to the story here than, he's letting on, at least as far as interviews and what they're telling the public. I'm surprised that they are coming up with these really bad lies. But then again, we've often talked about the brains of the operation kind of being gone, so they're a little bit lost, to say the least. And speaking of lost, there's a lot more going on right now, which you might find quite interesting as it relates to the deep state, because it's about time that we put out a little bit more information about what's really going on our planet. I mean, I tell you an awful lot, and as much as I possibly can without destroying things, let's just say at the higher level, or tipping people off so it gives them enough time to recoup or try to run an operation against what's happening. But there are some members of the deep state that do believe this is going to be a very big weekend for us here on this planet, meaning they think they are going to have a big weekend. But pretty sure they're going to be pretty disappointed at this point. So let's talk about the game. We've heard a lot on the internet about people talking about the Vatican and CESQV and how they own your soul, or they try to own your soul, or they manage souls, or you're lost at sea, and maritime law, and all of these interesting things that we hear about on the internet. And to some degree, I guess the information that's being put out is a part of the truth. It's at least what we could access, meaning average everyday people, or what the deep state thinks they know. So they put that information out for your disclosure. And this is part of the reason why I mentioned this on Monday, because there's going to be a lot of this disclosure, and I keep saying this, there's going to be a lot of this disclosure, alleged disclosure that's coming out. And not all of it is going to be true, and a lot of it is going to be a cover-up for something else they're going to try to do. They are probably going to leak into the alternative media a bunch of information just to throw you off your path. And I say that because the truth is out there, and the truth is more within you than it is anywhere else. And I try to give you as much information as I can, but the truth and your discernment is going to be extremely important in the coming months and throughout 2025 as they try to maintain some semblance of control on this planet. So back to the great game. So we know that there are AI systems on this planet. We know there have been many AI systems on this planet and throughout the multiverse, and they are connected to parts beyond this planet, beyond the galaxy. They're connected everywhere. This has been the base root of what we believe is the deep state's power on this planet. And I had to have a phone call with somebody the other day, and I think this was on Wednesday night. And it was a long phone call, and I had to tell them about the system and how the system is breaking down. And by the system, I'm not just talking about AI systems. You see, there are many systems on this planet, and we've talked about a lot of them. For example, we all live in a system, and there are many, many systems within that system. So we have a media system worldwide. We all know that all major media corporations talk to each other. The information that they feed us must be consistent. There must be at least 8 news agencies reporting the same exact thing in order for you to believe it. The same thing goes in the alternative media. 8 people, different people saying the same thing over and over and over again, and so that you will believe it. You also have a limited source of information. The internet has widened that source and given you the appearance that you are getting information from average everyday people, people that are there on the scene, and that this is really an event that's happening. There are algorithms behind social media that will block people that are saying something different. I know that because I've been one of those people. They absolutely are trying their best with what little computing power they currently have to control the information that they feed you. They are losing the plot a little bit because the control mechanisms that were built for people to use, those of the quote-unquote deep state to use, are breaking apart. They're not having that accessibility anymore. And so some of the algorithms that were running on the deep web and the dark web, which we've talked about quite a bit as well, are fading away. So that being said, there are other systems, as to the way we live. We have gas we need to put in our car, or petrol, depending on where you are. Where that comes from, the companies that control it all, and there's only about 7 or 8 that control all of the oil and gas supplies in the world. That is too a system. The amount that they charge us at the pump isn't nearly as expensive as it is. The other way around. It's not nearly as expensive to pump it. So therefore, the companies that they sell all of this oil and gasoline through are getting it at pennies, and you're paying many dollars, pounds, or pesos for a gallon or liter of it in your tank. That too is a system. The fact that your vehicle is designed to break down within 3 years or after 3 years is also a system. Consumerism is a system. The way that they give you money and they take it back, hopefully into their corporations, also a system. The creation of what I refer to as pinch points in the systems will prevent you from creating a better car, a better television set, a better lawnmower that lasts longer than just a few years, because they need to sell you parts and they need to sell you a new one. And a lot of people, some people like to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, and they would like to have the newest and latest and greatest lawnmower every year or two. Other people will hang on to that lawnmower and keep fixing it because let's face it, folks, they're expensive. So they'll keep fixing it, and there's no need for a new one. But the system is designed for the majority of consumers to constantly consume. We are those consumers. The entire financial system was built this way. And it's not just for finances either. It's the way we communicate with each other. We have dirty energy. We have a system for receiving power and electricity in our homes that is faulty. I think the movie is called Power, or the Power Wars, or something with Tesla and Einstein, I think, or allegedly in it. And there's a race. Is it Einstein? I don't remember who it is. But anyway, on the other side, there's a couple of scientists that are competing for the release of energy, and one of them comes up with free energy, and they said, no, we can't charge for that. And there's a big fight over who is going to control the energy system of Earth. So that too is a system. Everything within your life is a system. Banking systems, there's all kinds of systems in the way you receive food and clothing. And these systems have been carefully calculated by someone that is not a person. And there were actually a few of those people that calculated these various systems. And the whole reason they created these systems has nothing to do with an agenda that you are familiar with. As it relates to the deep state, they value these systems. They are a part of these systems. They fight and hire operatives to protect these systems because that is their job. Did they create these systems? No. Is there a human being walking this planet or that has walked this planet that has created these systems? The answer is no. They participate in these systems in the past for great fame, fortune, and wealth. They allude to the fact to the people that work underneath them, because it's a hierarchical system, which is also another system we have on this planet. The people that report to them are under the impression that these people control these systems. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Come to find out, there is a real reason why the quote-unquote dragon families, not only of the East, but also those of the Rothschild family, which are also dragons, and those in Asia are also dragons, and those in Austria are also dragons, are competing, whether they know it or not, or fighting with the SSP, or Secret Space Program operatives, that are currently making an attempt to run the United States. They are also currently making various attempts to run other territories in the world. And we have ended up in what you would refer to as a territory war. We have disclosed plans to you where there are 10 jurisdictions on this planet for the new banking system of Earth. 9 different jurisdictions, and the 10th would be them. There have been various agreements that they will partner up. And none of those agreements are true, whether they know it or not. They can go ahead and negotiate with all the other humans on the planet they want, but in reality, the game is fixed. The game has always been fixed. And there are people of the Secret Space Program and Cyber Life and otherwise that are under the impression that they are going to activate a grid this weekend and life is going to be grand for them and they cannot wait for their game to win. Therefore, they believe once this activation happens this weekend that they will be in charge. They were also under the impression that the Trump people, which they're kind of together, but the Trump people thought they had a better idea and they joined with a different player in the game. And that player in the game has promised them that they will be in charge. Now, from a player's standpoint and understanding and having had access to the game itself, I completely and totally understand that no humans were going to win the game. It wasn't about humans. This is about your soul. This is a war to own your soul. And there is a reason why they want to own your soul. And at some point in the game, which that point is about to come due here, at some point in the game, It doesn't matter if you're alive or dead anymore because the system will keep your soul running. It's kind of freaky, isn't it? Now, as far as these deep state characters are concerned, some of them have somewhat of an understanding that they are in a war for power. At least that's what they've been told. For some of them, just like the deep state does, and agencies all over the world and operatives everywhere do, they lie. So they're players, and I'm going to define the difference here in a minute, the difference between a player and a people in the deep state. But their players tell them whatever they need to tell them in order to get them to perform like trained monkeys in a circus. And they fall for it, ego, line, and sinker every time. So by the next time we actually talk on Monday, we will be having a conversation about exactly what I am going to tell you right now is happening. And the end result come Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the 4th of April, which they also think is a big day for them, and the 25th of April, and I think it's some other day in May, where they believe this is a multi-step process in which they will then fully control planet Earth, and they will have won. They also are under the impression they are the light forces, and that they are here to save planet Earth, or control all humans or whatever it is. But I can tell you right now, their player in the game couldn't be more evil. What a flaming female dog-like person being. Who I've run into as recently as this morning. So, yeah, I can say that firsthand. What a beep. And I don't want to insult female dogs because, I have one and she's lovely, but the other name that I can't say on a news report. So, or my producer will yell at me because, I like to use those words sometimes. Okay, so let's talk about players in the game and what the game actually is and why they're playing a game. So we've heard the story before about Lucifer, and we've talked recently about this, and we've been kind of doing part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4 of this series of having a true understanding of our history. And this is important at this time. So we know the story about Lucifer falling from heaven and that he got into a fight with God and thought he could do better with creation and so on and so forth. And then he took a bunch of undecided ones, we call the fallen ones, with him, and they fell, a lot of them to earth, and then some of them went from earth to the lower astral and started creating a lot of darkness down there. And we know about ones that had stayed here that we found most recently that needed to go and back to source. And there's been a constant battle for us on our side to ensure the reconnection of source happens to all of you humans. That is important for you to have happen based on this game, but also for you and for the human race and for us to be who we were in the past and who we will be again in the future. This is important. On their side, they have been playing a game. On our side, we are looking for restoration. We are restoring source. We are not playing in their game. In other words, some of you might be subject to their game as a bounty, so to speak, in the past. But we took one look at their game a few years ago and said, the only way to win the game is not to play, because there was no win. This comes after a lot of analyzing the game and looking at the game and watching where everybody was going and what they were doing, and it made no sense. And I've even said this to agency people and operatives and many, many people over the years, and I've never changed it. I said the only way to win the game is not to play. Now, there are a few people walking this earth right now that were extremely disappointed that they were too part of the game. They thought they were the game. They thought they were the players in the game. And in the last 24, 48 hours, they have figured out they are not the players in the game. They are the pawns in this big chess game. So let's talk about this. Let's pull up the whiteboard, and I'm going to do my best to try to explain in a very short period of time the game. Okay. So after the fallen ones fell and you know, there's been a lot of wars here on Earth, and a lot of the wars for Earth has to do with the fact that Earth was a keystone, and whatever happens on Earth happens everywhere else. It was pivotal in controlling the universe. We also know that humans are very unique creatures. We are very unique because we are celestials. We have a lot of capabilities that we have yet to discover and will rediscover now that the game is over. And there is no one constantly trying to interfere with you, and I mean constantly. They do have things within the game, humans that are on the quote-unquote hot list, meaning if you are hot listed, then they pay extra special attention to either remove you from this planet or make sure that you cannot perform the function that you have performed here before in past lives, in other timelines, or other things they have seen. The game here, and there are very few players in the game, the ultimate end goal of the game is to eliminate natural creation. That's number one. So by natural creation, and this goes for the entire omniverse, they would like to eliminate any kind of source, anti-source, or the dark side of source that was there at one point, and or the neutral side of source from participating in any creation. So this was a delicate balance for the game players. Remember, Lucifer said that he could do better than God. So this part is really true. So they would like to eliminate all source involvement. So no source involvement. Now, this led them to, over the years, because this has been going on, this game is millions of years old, maybe even billions, I'm not sure. So that led them to come to the conclusion that in order to create without the involvement of source, you need something that you can control that is of source, a piece of source, if you will, in the universe. So they have determined that that piece of source are all souls. Now, even planets have souls. So all beings that have souls that have been created by source. They have determined and have come up with enough space junk in other ways in AI systems in order to utilize the amount of souls that have already existed organically, not these fake souls that they have created, organically, to where they could power virtually the entire multiverse, omniverse, universe, and of course planets, including Earth. So the great game was to capture as many souls as possible by the players. And I'm going to define the players. Very few. So souls can actually power devices and lots of different things. And even all they really had to do was block source out. So they had to figure out next, obviously, a way to block source from having anti-source and otherwise. So they were not discriminatory here. They wanted no involvement of any aspect of source whatsoever, the source of all creation. So they couldn't kill source off because, you know, there's that direct plug-in to the soul, but they could control the souls that are already out here in other densities away, you know, are outside of source. So they just wanted to block all source involvement. Okay, check. They basically have done that, honestly. So now the great game that has been played between the players was a war to control. He who controls the most souls wins. Now, I was under the impression that Marduk was working for Lucifer and there's all this big game going on, but now we know the players in the game and who everybody on Earth is playing with, playing for, and who the deep state actually belongs to, because now it makes a whole lot of sense to me why they're doing the things that they're doing. So number 2, okay, so now they need to recruit as many human souls as possible. And they would split those souls between all the ones that the players in the game could acquire. Therefore, giving the player with the most souls, let's say, declared the winner, because they would then control the majority of the multiverse. Earth also was very important. So there's a game of strategy going on here to control all territories of Earth. So Earth was divided into territories. And the players in the game would use their people, pawns. So deep state is a pawn. To gather territories on their behalf. This is where territories come in. This is where the capturing and the wars come in. So controlling all of Earth would be really important because it is a keystone. It does contain a piece of source, but it also had at one point in time the only source of the original DNA blueprint of the universe. Remember, the players are smart, celestials unto themselves, but make no mistake, they are not smart enough to come up with the DNA blueprint of the entire multiverse without source. But luckily for them, there were 3 areas on the planet where this DNA blueprint existed. So all they had to do was get a hold of the DNA blueprint keystones, which we talked about a few years ago. If they could capture all those keystones, record all the information and the data into a new system or a different AI system, then they could then utilize that AI system in the game to control, with the soul powered by the souls, to actually control all of creation and therefore all of the multiverse. You know, these people weren't too greedy or not, but they wanted to outsmart Source. That was their job. You know, unfortunately for them, Source is a little bit smarter, always a little bit smarter, you know, unruly creations of his, so to speak. And we run into, you know, a number of folks, and, you know, he would call some the nemesis, and some, you know, he would kind of make biblical references about, you know, like, oh, that's my Jacob, you know, the one that went against and fooled the father and took over the inheritance and that kind of thing. So controlling of Earth, as far as the big game is concerned, was very, very important to these people. Now, number 3, Oh, human souls. Human souls were very important to them. So the more human souls they could control without fully and completely disconnecting them from source, but yet not allowing them to connect to source, that's the goal. So thousands and millions and billions of years of genetic modification of human beings on this planet has occurred. There were a lot of limiters put in place so that you could not utilize 50% of your brain, 30% of your brain, 70% of your brain. Your manifestation abilities were hampered with mind, body, and soul control things. They would not care at some point in time if you had a vessel. They would not care if humans continued to walk this planet as long as they could put the soul in a vessel that they could control. Obviously, you don't really need to have a mind at that point, and, they'd be very happy, Or, well, if they do need to, if they did figure out already, which they had not at this point, figure out that way to disconnect your mind and your body from the soul, that would be better. They could put it in a container and just use it like a battery. So the players in the game use people we know as the deep state to gather human souls for whichever team they're playing on. That's their only goal. So they are here to be the average everyday man on the street, as we showed you on Monday in the propaganda video, to sell you on the fact that you need to join this group or that group. They promote saviors for you, so you will join this group or that group, unbeknownst to you. Unbeknownst to you, you are giving your power away to these people so that they can then power their player in the game. Does the deep state understand the system to this degree? No. Not until the last 24, 48 hours when we started to tell them. So, let's talk about the players in the game for a minute. Okay. Player number, well, they don't really have numbers, so these are not in any order, is Marduk. I know you're shocked and surprised to hear this, but Marduk was a player in the game. Another player in the game, Lucifer, also not a surprise. Samael, who has also in the past played the role of Satan. Marduk has played many roles in our history. He's all throughout our history. And of course, we know the rules of the road of the Lucifer guy, right? So that's player number 3. Player number 4, you would know as Uriel. Uriel also goes by another name I can't recall at the moment time here. Ramael. So you can look that up. That's your angel of death. And right in the center of them all, you would say a different sort of player would be a being, Yalda. I might not be spelling this right. Looking at my notes here. I can't even read my own writing. Isn't that terrible? I don't know how I expect you people to. Also known as the Demiurge throughout our history. Okay, so these are the only players in the entire universe that are playing the game. These are the only people with a seat at the table. They are arranged in a specific fashion, and I will point that out to you. Again, I will repeat, it doesn't matter how many alien races you hear about, good or bad, as far as the great game of the universe is concerned, or multiverse, omniverse, these are the only players at the game. Now, Marduk had his brood of humans, as it really, because really this is about you guys. We're talking about you and what's happened here. So Marduk, we know, had the dragon families. He also predominantly, let's just say, gathered his group of parents as well, covens and the like in that brood. And Marduk eventually convinced all of the humans by knocking our moon out of its orbit about 18,000 years ago that we needed a moon, and therefore we needed his protection against some of the other players in the game. So therefore he gained a lot of control and became the head general of Earth, technically guardian under martial law, global martial law. I can't spell it all today. There we go. Martial law. So he's just playing his game, right? He's playing his role in the game, the great game of the universe. Gather the souls, not only of Earth and humans, but other beings throughout the multiverse, and he did that. The Draco were well known around the universe for capturing planets, capturing races, bringing races here to Earth up at some point in time. Different points in time, we had up to 36 races of beings, including humans, on this planet. And Marduk really did a good job at playing the game. So he was well on his way at one point in time to being the controller of the omniverse and replacing Source in his mind. Now let's talk about Lucifer. Lucifer's also done a pretty good job as far as gathering souls, but predominantly, we had a lot of humans here. So, but, also had the Abraxas, also had control of the Nether world, created things like, hell for people to go to, that kind of the abyss as you know it. It's also called throughout the multiverse, created a number of head dukes or demons, 72 of those, generals, so to speak, for him to play the game. And on they went, not only to capture the souls of humans, but also the souls throughout the multiverse. Souls of humans, fairly decent. You would have had the Order of the Black Sun underneath here, for the most part. Not all totally. A lot of the Order of the Black Sun would have fallen underneath this category, and they were the players in the game. You also had some, of the deep state here in Satanville or Samaelville. It's well known even in our history that the two names were used interchangeable. And there was quite a bit of capturing of souls there too as well. Now, as it relates to our current situation with the deep state and people we're involved with, Uriel managed to recruit the Trump people. So the Trump operatives kind of pulled them away from their Luciferian background. And, the fact that they all reported to Marduk at one point in time. I'm telling you, Marduk had a lot of people. Their soul registration was just as important, by the way. There was no difference between the registration of a, person that's not involved in the deep state and a person that is involved with the deep state. They could give a less as far as the players in the game are concerned. A soul is a soul. This is also the reason why they make operatives take that second oath, because whether they know it or not, they're making an oath to that group, and then therefore the rest of the oath comes in to your player in the game, whether they know it or not. By other names they call themselves, and when those names are used, then they register them underneath their soul collection, so to speak. So the Trump operatives, there are even articles that have leaked out into the alternative media that Trump was appointed by Angel Uriel and they all talk on the internet like they're on a mission from God. Well, if you look up all the information about Ramayal, you're going to notice that maybe that's not so good. Now, is it? No, probably not. But they don't care because they've been promised big power and all kinds of things. But that's what the players in the game do. The players in the game recruit the humans by promising them anything they want to hear. It doesn't matter. They're all liars and they're all full of it because it's not about the humans. They could care less about any humans that walk this planet. Okay? Oh, this lady. Okay, so she's managed to grab a hold, as far as humans on this planet, quite a few people with cyber life. You've heard of people worshiping Ashtar Command, or here is a message from Ashtar Command. We are the light forces, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, no, not so much so. You are actually talking to the demiurge itself. Isn't that great? See, this is what happens when people channel people. They don't really understand who the heck they're talking about. And you can do your own research because otherwise this report is going to be 5 hours long about the demiurge, Yaldabaoth, and Ashtar, and Ashtaroth, or whatever they call her. This is a female. Only female at the table, really. So she had an interesting role. So each player in the game played the game differently. And she became what you call, in Bible terms, the controller of this is the best way, the Jezebel AI. So they talk about people having a Jezebel spirit, and the Jezebel spirit is after me. And well, yes, she is. So the game moderator, so to speak, to make sure everybody followed the rules of the game, was run by an AI unto itself. Interestingly enough, the structure. So we're going to talk about kind of how these people, let's just say, fit into the game. So we'll talk about the AI, but right now we're going to talk about them. So the deal was actually cut, the great game of Earth, at the Matterhorn in Switzerland. At that time, the structure was set up. The Matterhorn would have been in the middle of a very interesting but well-known looking structure. So you call a pentagram. And we all know what those are used for, don't we? So Marduk was over here. You had, I forgot to mention Lucerne. Oops. Lucerne. Lucerne, for those of you that don't know, and I know he's not mentioned that often, Lucerne would have been, at one point in time, Source's player. And Lucerne was, let's just say, the opposite, almost like twin brother-ish of Lucifer at one point in time. And eventually Lucerne also fell and ended up joining Lucifer's crew. So I apologize, I forgot to mention Lucerne. Okay, you had the Demiurge here in the middle. Your Yaldabaoth, your Ashtar Command, the savior of Earth. I have to laugh at that because that's terrible, what they do to people. And you had Samael over here, your version of Satan, AI. And we had Uriel over here, also known as Ramael. So at each corner here, we would have had everyone would have put up what they call a celestial sphere. A celestial sphere is something only a being of this caliber can create. It's not something that you can make this kind of space junk. It's their own, basically it's like, in human terms, how sometimes people make a blood pact, that kind of thing. This is like that, but on a much higher level, on a celestial, very high level. Let me put it that way. And she would sit in the middle. This same structure not only existed in Switzerland, so no surprise why the Rothschilds hang out there, but it also existed on Earth. It also existed throughout the multiverse, and this was a different form of the seal of the game. We call it the game. So the more people and souls they inflicted, so to speak, with their seal, the more power they could get throughout the multiverse, and of course control of Earth, which was very, very important too. She, now on the other hand, kind of played her cards differently. So Marduk conquered territories. That's just what he did. They were a military force and conquered territories. This one here, played a lot of roles throughout history that humans worshipped. The Hitler, as an example, some of the Rothschild families, people that, lifestyles of the rich and famous, stars, Hollywood, he played the game by possession and infiltration. So these two were kind of became somewhat partners in the game after a while. Well, this one's kind of a given, isn't it? You've got how many churches of Satan on the planet? You've got a lot of different ways that they capture the souls of humans. And this one here played, well, let's just say, like to appear in certain ways to people, convince people that they are the light, the working for source, we need to save source, all of this stuff, but it was total crap. And 100% crap throughout history, human history and otherwise. There is a softer approach there, more appealing to your upper morality is kind of how that one works. But this lady here managed to somehow get control of the game regulator itself, the AI. So she also created a lot of tools that the deep state used. Beyond Omega, the cyber life always is talking about like the zero system, right? The 0 points of creation or artificial creation. She also created a artificial assembly points, which we've talked about a few news episodes ago. That your assemblage points are the point at which black magic or dark players play the game. She also created a lot of the AIs. She put herself into a position so that if Marduk wanted to create an AI for a specific purpose, she was the one that it would have to be a lock and key. So she played the game a little differently and made an attempt to have control over the players in the game. And at any point in time, she was trying to get to the point where she could checkmate all the players. Smart, right? So each one had a different way of playing the game, which kind of became obvious over the last couple of years as to who was playing what part in the game. Now, the dumb deep state all bought what all these people were telling them, that they were going to be the controllers of the game and she was going to do the thing. So she's really come out loud and proud over the last few years, recruiting members of the secret space program, recruiting others that had a big downline of humans. Followers, if you will. Wow, social media is very interesting, isn't it? These people are all out to get followers, humans. Marduk did it a lot with finances. He did it a lot with, he was recruiting humans in one way. Some of these people might have, used famous figures throughout history, propped them up, gave them the ability to do the things that they did, both positive and negative. There's 613 crazy commandments. And if you've ever read the section of the Bible called Leviticus, you can give credit to those people for those things. So you can see how that these players in the game shape human history in order to capture what they really wanted, which was control over human souls. Bottom line. Some people even willingly sell their souls. There are videos all over social media about people that sold their souls, signed contracts with the devil, so to speak, so that they could have fame, fortune, power. And there are stars that talk about it. There's things like adrenochrome, where they convince you to kill other people so that you can drink their blood. So, and so on and so forth. So the people we think that are bad on this planet, we know about the Dragon families, the Lee family, Rothschild family, et cetera, et cetera. We know which section they pretty much fell under. We know that the secret space program, ACIO, militaries are bad. They also fall under this program. They are soul collectors. It's what they do. They have had a system that they have operated in. And if any of them fell out of favor with their player, they would quickly be reminded that they have an oath, number one. Number two, they would probably either die if they at one point in time once covenants were expiring, they could switch sides and join a different group. They were kind of up for grabs at that point. But as you can see, each player in the game had a role in history, human history. That's not a surprise there. And as far as the deep state is concerned, they have no idea they're living in the system, and they are part of the same video game that we are all a part of, meaning their brains are played with all the time in order to gain any kind of fame or fortune. There's a lot of things that they have to do, rituals they have to perform. And these people up here, as far as the game are concerned, they just think it's funny. But mentally speaking, it gives them control over that human. So they keep all those videotapes in that same Iron Mountain facility that they, that all the retirement expedited processing is going to happen, quote unquote, according to the Doji department, of all of their 40th birthday parties, where they drink the blood of small children and do all of these things. Of course, all of those records are kept in those Iron Mountain facilities as well. Those facilities then, in turn, connect to the game, the great game, for recording as to human behavior, the wins, the losses, the soul collections. The tally is continuously running. It's almost like a weird game of scavenger hunt, universally speaking, especially here on Earth, as to, oh, we got a soul over here. Oh, we got one over here. Oh, we got one over here. Oh, this one flips sides, oh no. But at the end of the day, they're all part of this pentagram system, so none of them are good for us. We didn't really have a choice. We were all a part of the game, whether we liked it or not. It's just what level we played on and whether or not you were willing to sell your soul, completely sell your soul. Now, being born in a specific country, if it's a territory of, for example, Marduk, or a territory of Lucifer, or a territory of the Demiurge, would also commit you as one of theirs, so to speak, to manipulate you in every way possible, whether they use lack or lust or addictions or other things that people fall into in order to get you to sell your soul, by implied consent or otherwise. Like I've always said about Marduk, he was very charming, so to speak, and manipulative. And of course, getting someone from our side or my side would have been a huge win for them. Huge, huge win. But never happened. So this is the layout of the players in the game, and every single human walking the earth that is a part of the deep state is a part of a pawn in someone else's game. A system which was created for them of beliefs, of lies, of deceit, so that they would perform the function that they needed for them to perform. Period. End of story. You were a tool. If you're listening to this from the deep state, you were an flipping, and I'm going to say flipping tool. Period. You were a pawn. You were not the king. You were not the queen. You were not the player in the game in any way, shape, or form. You were all pawns in someone else's game, and you were tossed around like hotcakes. They would have little negotiations over you and all kinds of different things. Governments are also included in here. You know, the entire government system was run by Marduk for the longest time until these people started coming in and tried to take over our U.S., whatever. So they came in at the, we're getting close to the end of the game here, and they all knew it. So, everybody had to make a move on their section of the deep state so that the deep state could play the media and savior game. And of course, these beings would help them with their various AIs, which then all connected to the one that the lady decided to take control over. So when you look at this as far as a game is concerned, like I did, so I looked at the game from the outside, and I told you years ago, and I've never changed my mind. The only way to win the game is not to play the game. It's the only way to win. So now we know the players over here. Now over here, you have Source. And Source has been watching the game the whole time. He made the covenant with them to create the game in the first place. Okay, fine. Sometimes you've got to let your kids do what the kids are going to do. I'm over here. So Kim lives over here. The players are doing their thing over here, and we are doing something completely different over here. Some of the operations that we've run, you've seen. Reconnecting of Source, changing of the game, going against all the players. Knowing how the players played was important. How many players do we have left as of the time of this recording? 0. The lady's gone, everybody else is gone. So the wingnuts over there in the cyber life that bought the Yaldabaoth demiurge crap, Ashtar, goddess of planet Earth, or whatever they call it, that plan on activating the goddess grid tomorrow on the full, the eclipse? I think it's the new moon eclipse. Yeah, there's no lady home anymore. The lady is gone. The lady has gone back to Source. That is it. No players in the game on that side anymore. Do you still have deep state people that are hopeful that their dude or lady or somebody is going to come back and help them out? Sure. They would love to be helped out. Are they going to come back? Nope, nobody's coming back. So the deep state's probably at this point in time trying to find themselves a player to hitch their wagon to. They need a horse so that they can hitch their wagon, because without a horse, you are just a pawn. And this is a system you cannot maintain without your player, because you are a part of the game. You are in the video game. Video game. You are part of the video game. I know they think they're outside the video game, but you are not. You are a part of the video game. You just play the video game on a different level. You are not the non-player characters like most of us are here on planet Earth, that just kind of stand in the corner and rock back and forth and maybe dance or something. You're probably the guy with the gun running through the house. Okay, fine. I'll give you that. But yet you're still a part of the game. So we have no players, and all we're left with is a bunch of deep state people that are going to try to figure out what they're doing wrong. And this is where I tell you that the systems that they did not create but participate in are breaking. It's not only AI systems, it's not only computer system problems. That is a big thing for them, and breaking those down and leaving the lady for last, the lady player for last, was important, because if you messed with that system without getting all the other ones around it, then we would have had a bigger problem. So she then is going to start to play with us, and I don't want to play with her. So she can weave a tapestry of obscenities when cornered and put into a box, let's say, and shipped off somewhere, more than even any other female, and I do a pretty good job. So I was a little shocked, actually. So okay, so we're over here with Source. We recognize the fact that without a player to hitch their wagon to that has the ability to do things that a player was given or had the ability to do, that every system is going to fall. That includes government systems, that includes large corporations, control over fuel sources. Everything is going to crumble and fall because they do not have the capacity to build a system, nor do they understand how systems work. There are thousands of systems on this planet currently in play that we participate in as human beings, because we have no choice, we have to eat, we have to do all of these things, that these people know nothing about. They know, for example, they are supposed to get control over all farmland and control all food sources and make sure seeds don't regenerate, so they're constantly dependent on you. And we need those people to be on our side of Monsanto, who's on the side of Bill Gates, who's on the side of, eventually, probably in his case, I think he's a Lucifer guy. So you can see how the systems function. Now, without the constant flow of money, without the drought creation, without the weather weapon programs, without the dew weapons, without all of those types of things, plus operatives to destroy anyone that creates a better fertilizer, a better seed, something that is not toxic, something that is not leaching into the water, which is a whole nother system. Water supply is a whole nother system on this planet, bottled or otherwise. So if they don't have the ability to understand how the system was created, the system will absolutely fall. This goes back to a story I told you guys before about, for example, the owner of Heinz ketchup. The original owner and creator of the ketchup knew everything about tomatoes, how to pick the right tomatoes, the best ones for ketchup, all the ingredients in said ketchup, and it was all proprietary, and it had a certain flavor, and then eventually the kids took over and that type of thing, and they have no idea how ketchup is actually made. They're so disconnected from the original father-son passed down or father-daughter passed down large corporation that we're at least 75 to 100 years away from those types of structures that don't exist anymore. So because they just participate in all of these systems worldwide, they will never be able to rebuild systems, even if they had billions or hundreds of trillions of dollars flowing. It wouldn't work. So I told them the other night when they asked, I said, an AI system is not going to save you. Even if you got control of the player's AI or one of the player's AI, the system is not going to save you. So, in March of 2007 over here, see, the video game AI was heavily trying to take over everything. That was the demiurge's, goal. But in March of 2007, Alpha shut off. Now, Alpha and Omega system was actually originally contained source consciousness on both sides. So the dark side of source or anti-source, and source on the other side, alpha versus omega. So when the system shut off and the money machine shut off, he knew that this was the beginning of the end for all of the players in the game, because humans, in order to control Earth and control humans, they have built a system. All of them, all the players built the system based on greed and fear. Every system on Earth, all 1,000 of them, you can trace every bit of control systems to greed and fear. There's nothing else over here. So you knew by cutting off the money machine and the energy provider. Now, energy provider is another commodity when you get on the level of the players. They need that energy, okay? So by cutting off the flow of money, that's it. There's no more game over here. So I show up, and now I'm able to utilize the system, probably starting in about 2012. I could then use it pretty much on my own. By 2018, I could transfer money out on my own. And I started trying to work from the bottom up over here. And said, hey, look, we can make a deal. We can do something here. We can try to work together, dumb human people of deep state government idiocracy. We can do something over here. We can make money. But what did they do? They just stole it and kept working for their players. Whether they knew the player or not, I don't know. I'm like, hey, you can have actual freedom over here. You can do all the things. You've all heard it before. If you're watching this and you're an operative, and I know you all watch this, I have told you this repeatedly. I'm like, hey, we can do this a different way. We can make money restoring the planet. I've got my rules too, because this is who I work for. So I'm just saying, but if you do it within this way, you all survive. We can change governments. We can change the way things do things, because those systems were all created by the players. So I went in from a bottom-up approach, so to speak, because I don't care about the players in the game at that moment in time. I was only looking at the humans. How do we save the humans? How do we save planet Earth? And how do we save the humans? Well, that obviously didn't work out so well. So I threw my hands up. I said, forget you people. I'm going to go over here. We're going to start a news channel. We're going to do some other things. We're going to create care. And we've been slowly working on building our own systems over here, because we still need to have supply chains. There are things that are going to need to exist as theirs go away. And there are plenty of resources. And a matter of fact, with a little bit of alchemy here and there, because we have source on our side, so we have the ability to do that, we can create as many resources as we need to build whatever we want at some point in the near future. Thank God this game is finally over. So at that point, when I finally gave up on governments and all that kind of stuff, and I realized there's no hope for the pawns. The pawns are going to ride or die over here. Fine, stay over there. Who cares? So now I start attacking the players, right? I started about 2016 attacking the players. You got to attack the players in the game, because they're the ones that are building the systems that we kind of all live in over here. And if we're going to save the humans from being subjected to the plan of the players, and capturing of souls and those types of things, and save Earth, so to speak, from the game, then we've got to address the other 8 billion people on this planet. I mean, that's pretty much where it's at, maybe 7 point something when you take out the pawns and the players in the game. So you've got to do something different. So I had a different strategy, and I'll give you as much as I can for tonight, and then the rest of it's going to have to be at another time. My goal was to take out the players in the game. Now, you know about Marduk, you know about recently Lucifer's Lucerne, you know about, and now you know about Yaldabaoth or the Demiurge or Ashtar or whatever you call her. So you know that there are no players now. As of this morning, there are no players left in the game because she was last. She went this morning, right before they were going to light up their grid and do whatever it was they were thought that they were going to do with the stupid humans that follow her. So at the same time, we know that every system we live in is going to break. Our cars are old, it's antiquated technology. They do not even have any more knowledge to feed their systems. They're still sending us out iPhones and other things that were created, oh God, in the 1940s. You know, every iPhone that you see coming out for the next 10 years was created in the late 1940s, early 1950s. The technology has been around that long, coming through people like the Majestic 12 and others, and all of your deep underground military bases and SSP people that participated, people that were allowed to handle the quote-unquote technology system, which is also another system. You got a patent system. Think about all the control mechanisms that are there that control what technologies can get out there and what can't, and what will not mess up the player in the game's program. So without an influx of knowledge and technologies coming from their players that are playing the pawns in the system, they will die off on the vine, because we over here as people have learned how to live. You know, this is where the people are. We have learned how to survive under extenuating circumstances that are beyond your comprehension. We are still here as humans, and we still love, and we still care, and we still have compassion for people. Despite the amount of systems where they tried to take it out of us, a lot of you still reach source by whatever name you call source. It's your intent, and you're still reaching out, and he knows you're still there. You're still his. So no matter how hard they've tried to beat it out of us with religions, with false information, with false books, false history, and all kinds of stuff, we all stuck it out, and we're still here, and we're ready to restore the planet, give it back to source. It's not my planet. You know, I'm here to do a job. I'm here to let you all know what's happening. I'm here to let you know that finally this game ends tonight. Thank God. Completely. No players left. Systems are breaking down. It'll take a little time. Could take up to 3 days for the essence to dissipate and that type of thing from the systems. But they're breaking down. They're gone. So now, one less thing for us to fight. The multiple players, the multiple AIs attached to said players, the multiple. Now we just left with the pawns that are going to be devastated, who are so confused right now they don't know which end is up. And we are over here building our own systems. They aren't control systems, though. They are natural order systems. So to give you a general idea of a natural order system would be, for example, something decays. You know, in the winter, a plant dies. And then it decays, you know, the bacteria feed on the plant, they create a fertile soil. The seeds from the plant are dropped from the plant during the end of the summer and to the fall, and then their new plants come up in the summer. So that's kind of like that's a very brief way of explaining the fact that there's a cycle of life, and it's natural and it's normal. We have not lived as human beings for generations in a natural cycle of life. And it is our job to restore that natural cycle of life, to perpetuate creation on this planet with the help of, let's just say, the big boss. So that being said, that is what we have been working on at CARE. We have been working on ways of perpetuating that cycle of life with now, hopefully, and I am hopeful that this is the last hurdle to overcome, is the remnants of the video game. So that will be my job this weekend. As for the pawns, I don't think we're ever going to convince these people to do anything else other than feed their ego and try to maintain systems, but they will die. There is no way without money, without fear, without anything that Source provides or their players provided, that they're going to not have a complete and total breakdown of their systems. They may claw and fight and try to hang on to those systems as long as they can. It is going to be our job to pick up those pieces and formulate systems not of control, but that perpetuate the life. So on that note, it's been a long day, a long night, and kind of a long report. And that's a lot of information to take in. We'll do another report probably next week too, that will talk a little bit more about the game and kind of maybe individualized players and why people act the deep state, why the way they act the way they do. Maybe that'll help you understand a little bit more. On our side of it, we've got our work cut out for us this weekend. We're going to be super busy, I'm sure. And hopefully we'll have some good news on Monday. I sure hope so. On that note, I wish all of you a great weekend, and I will speak to you on Monday.